I'm never drinking again. Put a hurting on my credit card. I must have bought tequila shots for everybody at the bar. Well, I finally learned my lesson, seen the neon light on Sunday morning, saved no more Saturday nights. I mean it this time, at least until next weekend. I swear I'm never drinking again.
What's up, humans? Today on the Windy City Joes, we have an absolutely incredible talent. He is an actor, a producer, a promoter, a founder, an executive producer, and if you follow along on his Instagram, he is a huge foodie.
You may also recognize him from his popular, very own produced Mikey O show right here at Joe's on Weed Street, and even Joe's Live in Rosemont. Mikey O, thank you for coming on the show.
Wow, thank you guys so much for having me on. This is super cool.
We're glad to have you here. So I want to go back to the, I almost said glory days, but really just the early days. So I'm curious because we're kind of just meeting for the first time. Yeah. So where are you from?
I am originally this neighborhood. I'm from Wrigley Field.
Oh, wow.
The Wrigley, Halsted and Roscoe area, and then moved to Logan Square. So I'm Puerto Rican, born and raised in Chicago. But again, Logan Square is my current neighborhood.
Gotcha.
Oh, that's awesome.
So being born and raised in Chicago and being just in the comedy world for 20 plus years.
Yeah. What
got you started, or was it who got you started? Like, what got you just interested in, I guess, comedy to start?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I have always been a fan of comedy. I've always been a fan of sitcom and, Sanford and Son, Chico and the Man, All in the Family, Hogan's Heroes, we can keep going way back all the way to Gilligan's Island, right? So I've always been a huge fan of comedy, and probably like everybody else, I attempted to be funny in school and spent a lot of time in the principal's office, right?
Yep.
class clown type situation, right? But it was a hobby that turned into a business. There was a guy, I remember walking by Lincoln and Racine, and I saw on a Reader magazine box a thing that said Comedy 101. And it was a class taught by a guy named Jim Roth. And Jim, for those of you who know Jim taught a lot of people. Not taught a lot of people because comedy isn't necessarily taught. But what he taught was structure, how to lay it out and how to put it on stage. And I was already doing show production, but not comedy. And then I thought to myself, well, that's interesting because if I took my comedy interest and combined it with my knowledge of show production, I was working for a company here that did Latino festivals and stuff like that part-time. And I had gained this skill set and was working at the planetarium in their special events office. And I decided, I'm going to give this a try. So I finished the class. I do a couple of open mics. And one thing that I immediately noticed was there were no Latinos in the audience and there were no Latinos on stage. Now, I have said this from the very beginning. I never blamed that on a prejudice situation or racial situation or nothing like that. Everything has a demand. If there's no real Latinos on stage, we weren't expected to have a room full of Latinos watching, So I'm like, man, I think, I came out to do this open mic. I brought 13 people with me.
Wow.
And they liked it, and I was terrible. And they liked it. And I thought to myself, well, then what would happen if we just did a Latino comedy night, And there was a place on Halsted and Lake called Reunion. And Reunion had this availability. I went in there for a party, and I asked the guy, hey, you ever think about doing a comedy night here at all? The guy's like, no. And I'm like, well, I've got this idea. Well, how long have you done it? Actually, I've never done it. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
The guy's like, well, we'll take a chance. You can have like Wednesday or something. And I remember doing this show, and I printed out these little flyers and I handed them out to everybody, and I begged my friends and everybody to come out. And I booked the only 2 other people I knew here in Chicago, that did comedy, which was a guy named Alex Ortiz and Ricky Carmona. And Alex Ortiz did the show for us. And then Ricky Carmona did the show for us. I don't know if you guys know, Ricky Carmona is currently a writer for Tosh.0.
Wow.
And he's been on the show for a long time.
Wow.
So we ended up doing this reunion, and 40 people showed up and 50 people showed up. And then what does reunion say one day? It's over. We're selling the place. And I'm like, oh my God, right? But still, it wasn't called the Mikey O show. It was just reunion comedy night, you know. And I still kind of felt, you know, there's an audience here. Luckily, there was a guy that worked at Reunion who was a friend of the manager here. And he said, there's a guy at Reunion trying to do comedy shows. And let me just tell you guys, this venue I was way in the back at Joe's on Weed Street in the smaller of the rooms while there was heavy metal going on in the front room. I'm telling you, while there was heavy metal going on in the front room and rock tributes and all this other stuff. And we do the show in that back room and everybody is kind of like trying to listen because the guys were strumming on their guitars hard. The back room was packed. And then they said, and a lot of people, when I tell them this, they're like, what? They said, you know what? Let's see if we can put you in the tent. Believe it or not, that lot next door, where if you ever go to Joe's, if you've been to Joe's on Weed Street, you know that next door there is the OTB building. But that was an empty lot with a circus tent.
Wow.
Oh,
Bro.
wow.
But I'm going to tell you the truth. I always said, if I own the nightclub, I will bring back the circus tent. Because you would see bands in there, just like the back room, whatever. So we went to the circus tent. And all of a sudden, we had this following. And it was, you know, then the problem was there were no comedians. So I found Ricky Carmona, Patty Vasquez eventually did the show. But I was promoting this Latino comedy show and rotating the same 2 or 3 people. You know, we had a female cancel the show on us. So we ended up putting Alex Ortiz in drag. That's a true story.
Oh, okay.
Crazy Gloria, he called herself, you know.
Yeah.
And it worked. People loved it. It became great. But that's how it started. And we've been here the whole time, and it's been a great place. When I tell people who's performed, you know, remember, it's a Latino comedy room, a Latino comedy night, but we've never, ever had a show that did not include everybody.
Right.
Everybody. We've just never done that. We called it a Latino comedy night to bring the people, you know, but TJ Miller, Kameo, Hannibal, Prashant Venkarata. I mean, the list goes on of people who performed here, you know, Felipe Esparza, and the list goes on and on and on of people who perform here. It's been a great, great room.
What was Hannibal from Chicago?
Hannibal was from Chicago. And
all right.
he was, well, as far as where he lived, I can't, I want to make sure I don't misrepresent it. I don't know, but he was in this room on a regular basis. And I mean, Cameron Esposito, we had this awesome thing here where we were doing weird things. Like, as an example, right after 9/11, I think we were the first people to put Jewish and Arab American comics on the same stage.
Oh, wow.
And they didn't tell me this, but I think that combination of being on stage together wasn't happening in other places out of fear. But remember, I didn't do it because I was bold. I was doing it because they were funny.
Right.
And, you know, it happened to me also with a gay show. Somebody said to me, hey, I did a gay show here one night where I brought in Sandra Valls, and a very, very, very well-known lesbian comedian. And people said, hey, you better go outside. There's a line out the door. I said, oh, man, a line out the door. That's great. Well, it was people protesting, you know, Jesus loves you type of thing, you know, and they were protesting. But that was awesome because the reader did a story on it.
There you go.
And what does the lady from the Windy City Times say, from the gay magazine at that time? What did she say? The gay community embraces Mike Oquendo. Well, my gay show went on forever after that because, you know, I was the guy who did gay comedy. Again, another thing that I did just because, and the people would say, well, how do you feel about doing gay comedy? I'm like, well, you keep asking me that question, but I didn't meet her that way. I saw her. She was hysterical. I put her up. Right. I saw the Arab American. the Jewish American, the Indian, they were hysterical. I put them up. And from that was born fajitas and greens and all in betweens. Different, yet the same.
There you go.
Which became a popular college show.
That's a kick-ass story.
Yeah.
So with all these comedians that you have, I guess, worked with, and even in the early days, you found them and were just like, hey, I need you for this.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been, I guess, identifying between good comedians and I'm guessing not good comedians through your life. So what do you think is the biggest difference between someone that knows how to put together an act and do stand-up between someone that doesn't?
Yeah. So I'm a, so I don't like, I had this problem this week with another situation. I don't like, there was a comedian that used to come in here all the time. His name was Michael Palisak. And Michael Palisak used to go in the corner and he would walk in and he didn't care about the pizza and the soda and the girls that were in the room or nothing like that. He'd stand in the corner and he'd write and he'd write and he'd write and he'd write and he'd write. And I thought to myself, this guy is engaged in these 4 minutes I'm about to give him. He is totally into those 4 minutes. As a young producer, as a young promoter, what I learned from him was, right? What are you here for? Yeah, there's a party going on here. Yeah, the music's loud. But what are you here for? You're here to knock out the best possible 4 you can knock out. And from that guy, I set the standard. Here is why. Sometimes we get other comedians that are like, oh, yeah, I've seen his set. Or I've seen her set. Or, yeah, she's kind of weak. I don't like that. And here's why. Because we were all new once at everything we did. So if we take that comic and make the environment an uncomfortable, an unhappy environment for him, it's probably not going to be funny, right? Yeah. But if we accept everybody where they're at and be like, yo, now if I get a guy that comes in and, because this always happens. I get the guy that comes in, yeah, man, I killed here and I killed there and I do this and I do that. And I always say to myself, no, he's not going to do well. He's not going to do well. I see that quiet comic that comes in and he's in his notes and I'm like, this guy's going to rip this guy's, I never saw this guy before. This guy's going to rip the room apart.
So there's a lot of just like humility and being humble to it.
Yeah, man, being humble to it. And you know what? So what if, comedians will come up to me and say, how did I do? I've always said, I hate that question. You know how you did, right? Because we are judged by the audience. Did they laugh? Yeah. Oh, I think you did good. You know what I mean? How did you, because again, you're working on your set, your craft. That's your set. You're not an actor where I'm handing you a script. You're not a TV reporter where I'm handing you the news, right? You wrote that, you got to bring it to life. And if you fail at that night, that's that night. Everybody cannot have a home run night. You cannot. Every comedian that you've ever seen on TV will tell you, he knows all his bad nights,
Yeah.
And so, you come in and you knock it out and we're lucky. We've got we've had an opportunity here to see so many comedians develop. Another thing that's happening before Me Too, before the Me Too movement, before it was cool to go out and try to defend people. Okay, before it was cool, we were doing a show here called Les Funny Femmes, all female comics hosted by a female. The DJ was a female. How was that show born? Because women would come here and say, thank you for giving me 5 minutes. I can't get 5 minutes anywhere without dating the promoter, without kissing. And I would be like, well, hold on a second. How many of you are there? There's 6 of us. I'm like, well, guess what?
That's a lineup.
The lineup, Funny Femme starts every Tuesday starting next week. And we packed it back there. Again, what did people say? Oh my God, you're so brilliant. No, I'm not brilliant. You're not giving these people a chance.
Right.
You're not giving them a chance. So, we if you're coming in and you're really committed to the act, and we're right down the block from Zanies. We have never been an enemy of Zanies, and we have most of the time closed our shows with. There's a lot of great venues to support here in the city. Don't forget, Zanies is right down the block. Check them out. They've got a great lineup too. Why? We don't do what they do. They don't do what we do. We've never considered them competition. What we do here was very different. It was a gym for comedians.
That's a cool way to look at it.
It's a gym. You come here to work it out, and comedians will call me and say, hey, I started working at Zanies. I really can't work for you anymore. And I would be like, yeah, that's the name of the game.
Mm-hmm.
The name of the game is you're moving up. I started working at the Laugh Factory. You know, I got a permanent gig at the, Second City. Yeah, that's the name of the game.
Those are good calls to get.
Yeah, those are good calls to get. If you're still doing my show only 5 years after you walked in here, you got a problem.
Yeah.
Right? Only, So the idea is to develop.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So do you think the comedy world right now is in a good place?
Man, that's a tough question because right now, so I have this thing. I was asked this question last night. I don't like comedians that apologize. I don't book them. When I see a comedian that's on social media apologizing for a joke, now let's be clear. Unless he was brutal and irresponsible, that's different.
Yeah.
That's different. You're being brutal, irresponsible, you're being a bully, you're being mean, that's different. But over the last few years, the amount of comedians that have had to apologize because we're locked in with sponsors or funding is brutal.
Yeah.
It's brutal. And it irks me to see that. I'll listen to the bit and I'm like, what was wrong with that bit? Right? There was nothing wrong with that bit. The problem is we've decided that we're going to dissect jokes now, dissect bits and say, this is going on in the news. It is now applicable to what's going on in the news. And I'm sensitive to that. And that's terrible.
Right.
That's terrible. He wasn't talking about, this bit here, because I chopped down trees with squirrels in them. Now you've got the tree people and the squirrel people coming after you because 2 weeks ago, that really did happen in a malicious way. That's not what he was talking about.
Right.
You applied it to yourself. So we're in a delicate place. We're coming back, but we're in a delicate place. And it's happened not only with the audiences, but with the comedians that are walking in now and saying, I'm here to do my time. When do I get paid? Well, first of all, we haven't seen you yet. Or what is it about this that makes it money for you?
Yeah.
They'll come in and they'll say, well, the place is packed. I should be getting paid. Okay. The place is packed. You should be getting paid because, of course, the venue's free. The servers are free. Security's free. Flyers are free. Sound guys are free. No, there's an operating cost here. And that part of it is also getting a little weird.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you should be hungry.
Yeah.
You should be hungry. When you hear that Billy Crystal drove halfway around the country for $40, that should be your inspiration.
Right.
Yeah. It sucks to hear. I mean, I want everyone to get their money, obviously.
Yeah.
But it sucks to hear the fact that like someone is in the art of comedy and they're like, all right, where is my money?
They're more focused on monetizing it versus just the appreciation of their own art.
Yeah. And the craft.
Yeah. Let's be very clear. You should be paid.
Right.
You should be paid. That I get. But most people don't know. I don't know if you guys know. You know that in New York City, a comedian has to do 5 or 6 train rides a night to equal about $80 a night. Some rooms pay 15, some rooms pay 20, some rooms pay 30, right? And that's New York City. You should be paid, right? You should be paid. What I always like to ask is this. You're working this out, right? Yeah, you're walking in to work this out. Comedians, if you want to be available for the $200 work, the $500 work, the $1,000 work, you should be available for the $10 work and the $20 work. By the same token, you should be improving in your work. You think it's fair for a producer or a promoter to pay $500 for a set that's 5 years old? In 5 years, you haven't updated your set. You haven't changed anything. I don't think that's fair. But, it's just what's happening.
Yeah. Well, and obviously the world went through such a crazy time where everyone is hurting for money.
Everybody is hurting.
But I do understand what you're saying, where, I mean, it makes complete sense to where they should be more focused on the craft and developing that versus just like, give me money.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and again, I'm not a big fan of it. I'm not a big fan of watching a guy take the bus in the rain when I'm leaving here after a show and I've been paid. I've seen that many times when I go east on Halsted, right? They leave here and, you know, I think to myself, wow, that guy just left with $25. And now he's on the train, he's in the rain, you know. So I get that whole part of it. But I'm only one, right? And I tell comedians all the time, bring me something that we can put on stage. We'd be happy to split the door with you. We'd be happy to create a revenue opportunity for you, right? So it's the way it is, but, and I shouldn't say it's the way it is. It's the way it is, and it shouldn't be that way because there's an incredible amount of opportunity, but, right? It's the stepping stone. It's the starting stone.
Yeah. Well, and you look at places like, I don't know if you saw that Showtime documentary on the Comedy Store.
Oh,
where they had a whole strike because no one was getting paid.
Yeah.
But I mean, you think about all those people like Leno and them that just started out not getting paid for years.
Yeah.
And it's like, because they were hungry.
They were hungry. If I could see that both ways, when the place was destroyed, when the place started to fall apart, nobody wrote them a check.
Right.
Nobody said, between Leno and I, we're sitting on $500 million, we're going to cut you a check. To a place that needed $90,000 to do some minor improvements. I mean, you know, whatever the case was, you get my point, right? So, you know, I know the comedians. I know the comedians just by looking at them. I know the ones that are going to hit, and the ones that are going to hit are the ones that are just hungry to get on that microphone. They don't want to listen. It's interesting. Somebody said, "Do you like all the comedians?" No. Do all the comedians like you? No. But one thing we have in common is when they hit that stage, they're doing their job. And we cannot argue with them about that at all. Because they're here. Remember, back to the original point about Michael Palisak.
Yeah.
What I learned from Michael Palisak is that, and he's been on, and he went on to do TV. He went on to do, I believe, all the late night stuff. What I learned about him was, I'm here to work. I'm here to work. I'm here to work. I'm here to make these people in the audience, you know, and I never sit backstage. I don't go backstage because I want to be with the audience. I want to feel what they feel. I want to check out this energy. And sometimes you see these comics that come in, the ones that are ready to work, and you're like, this guy's going to be a beast. Kameo was a beast when he walked in here, day one. Yeah. He didn't have a progression. I can think of 5 or 6 guys that happened to. He did not have a progression. He was a beast moment one. I was like, it's over.
So do you think with Chappelle, he just came out with a new special?
Yeah.
And it's his last one, he said.
Yeah.
Like these mega stars, of the comedy world are starting to take a step back because they're getting so much backlash for jokes that they're not saying with malice, but
I would almost say they're getting annoyed too.
Yeah, it's like easier to just step away from it for a while.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Here's my view on that, and I don't have an inch of the money that they have, right? But here's the thing. That's a lot of money for a Netflix special. It is a ton of money. I'm pretty convinced. And people always, come on. But I'm pretty convinced that if Chappelle did this room and he got $50, he'd be happier.
Oh, yeah.
You do
be happier.
You do hear about stories like that where he goes into just like dives or whatever. And Kevin Hart, too. They just work on their material.
Yeah.
And I almost wish I could see a special of that instead of the one where they're selling out Madison Square Garden or the Cowboy Stadium and stuff like that.
Wouldn't it be great to see, and I've again, just from ideas, but wouldn't it be great to see an entire Netflix series of them just doing pop-ins where nobody knows they're going to be there?
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you something. Those guys would be happier on those $50 nights than they would be on those $50 million nights. The 50 million makes a nice difference, but what happens is you detach. It's impossible not to, because you've got 19 people. You know, you got the sound guy, the lighting guy, the director, the assistant director, the producers, the executive producers. There's 52 titles you're reporting to.
Yeah.
As opposed to walking in, Billy the bartender, what's up, man? Good to see you. Jimmy, you still doing sound? You look terrible. And you sound terrible. Put me up. That's the happiness that they don't have anymore.
Yeah.
So when you're not allowed, you really can't. Joey Villagomez and I were invited to hang out with Paul Rodriguez at the Chicago Theater on his whole tour night. And I saw Paul Rodriguez say goodnight. And I never forgot this. And the same thing. From that, I make my comedians take the exit. I saw Paul Rodriguez say goodnight to 3,200 people. After he said goodnight, to 3,200 people. 3,200 people shook his hand on the way out. The show was over at 9:30. We left the lobby at midnight.
Yeah.
And I kept like, yo, when are we leaving? Because we were starving. Manager was like, he says goodnight to everybody. People bought him taco. People bought him cake. People bought him tamales. People bought him tequila. Old ladies bought him pictures to sign. And I thought to myself, much happier than not ever needing 22 people around you to escort you in and out of a venue.
I mean, he gets that connection, that personal connection, and that camaraderie with his fan base.
Yeah. I have 61,000 subscribers.
Wow.
No, emails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not Netflix. Not Instagram, not Facebook. Emails. 61,000 is my list. It varies $3,000 or $4,000. Interestingly enough, 3,000 or 4,000 people. New Year's Eve, from New Year's Eve through January 31st, people get laid off, people quit, people retire, people whatever. I'll start losing some, but then they build back up. 61,000. And people ask me, how'd you get those emails? One at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah. 20 years of one at a time. Why? Because I make it a point. My business card person will tell you, I hand out more business cards than anybody she knows.
Yeah, I got one of your business
We both
cards.
have one.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've met you in person.
Yeah. And so what happens is why? I tell the comedians, they saw you on stage, now make the personal connection. Oh, I just no. There's a guy that performs here. I'm not going to tell you his name. He's a Latino comedian from Los Angeles. Most people have never heard of him, but I can tomorrow morning put him on a flyer, hit send, and he'll pack it. Why? People remember those handshakes.
Right. Well, and I had an experience like that when I was in New York, and this kind of goes back to talking about female comedians, because I feel like today there's more female comedians rising up than ever before.
Absolutely.
Because they're getting more opportunities. Yeah. I was in New York and I popped into the Comedy Cellar to just see a show, and the list that they told me I was going to see got bumped because Nikki Glaser and Rachel Feinstein and Jessica Kirsten showed up, and they did a set and they stood by the door and they shook everyone's hand as they,
everybody.
And then it had a drink next door at the Fat Black Pussycat.
Yeah.
And it was like, just like seeing them drink and sit at the bar. It was like, wow, that's it changes your perspective.
They can be normal people.
Yeah.
And they're happier.
Yeah.
They're happier that way. They're happier with a regular, everyday crowd. And, look, I had a comedian tell me one time, he says, what was his name? Oh, Darren Carter, the party starter. And that was his name. And I'm going to tell you guys, today he would not do well because he had thongs that he sold at colleges.
Okay.
Yeah. He was nuts. And Darren Carter, the party starter, very funny, but very kind of like he would not, I'm not sure what he's doing today, but I guarantee you he's not selling those items. But Darren Carter, the party starter, would say to me, just so you know, you don't have a problem, but I go to each person and I say goodnight. I'm like, yo, I love that you do that. He goes, yeah. He goes, these people pay. Think about what he said. I never forgot the lessons I learned. These are, sometimes I say things and people are like, oh, you're brilliant. No, I learned this, right? I learned all of this from different comedians. He would say to me, they got a sitter, they got a date, they got new jeans, they got dressed up, they found a parking spot, they saved their money. Most of them don't have enough money to be here. I'm going to say hi to them because they made me important tonight.
That's awesome.
And I was like, yo, that's my new thing right there. I'm going to live by that. You know? They got sitters. They got, and that's exactly the way we have to treat the audience. And the audience picks up on that,
Do you believe in such thing as a bad room?
A bad room?
Yeah.
Yeah. A bad room is administered by a bad producer, a bad manager, not necessarily a bad comedian. When I see a problem in a comedy room, when I see an issue in a comedy room, I always say, where was the manager? I went to a show last night. There was a heckler. Okay. The heckler visibly disturbed the closer. Okay. Nobody got up and said, yo, you got to go. Here in my room, I respect everybody. Here in 20 years, okay, I have personally asked people to leave. We will say to them, here's what I'm saying to you. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. What I am saying is that I am ultimately responsible for that room, right? I'm not going to put that on a comic. So if I got a bad situation happening, including bad comedians, it's a bad producer situation, right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
The show starting late, that's my fault. People are misbehaving in the room. I had a guy here, true story, 15 years ago, bad date. I'm sorry, that's not what happened. He saw his girlfriend with her new date. He took a picture of beer and he poured it over her head in front of the dude. How many people you think got up in the audience and did anything? Nothing. Nobody.
Wow.
I'm looking around. I jump on the stage. I tell the sound guy, yo, cut the sound. I tell the lighting guy, lights up, let's go. And I was fuming, not at the fact that it happened, but not one person jumped in.
Yeah. Nobody did.
No, nobody.
Nowadays, nobody really jumps up. They just pull out their phones.
They pull out their phones. So I jump off the stage and I get the guy. Security comes, gets the guy, put the guy outside. But again, my responsibility. Ultimately, my responsibility. And if this room is cold, my responsibility. If there's bad service, I got to talk to the food and beverage guy and say, yo, what are we doing? Right. So bad rooms in terms of comedy, here's how that happens. Right. Remember, if the producer and the management are crappy, then the comedians will think that they can be crappy too, or that they won't be held accountable on stage. If you're not going to hold somebody accountable on stage, you don't have a comedy show. You have a free for all. I'm a big supporter of that. I've told people in the audience, don't disrespect my comedian. What? Don't disrespect my comic. I've also told comics, why are you talking while there's a comic on stage? What do you mean? Well, if you're talking, how am I going to tell that guy to shut up?
Right.
So if you guys don't you guys talk all the time? Go outside and talk. Don't talk while there's a comic on stage. Pisses me off, drives me crazy. 4 or 5 comedians talking while their peer is on stage. Get off the stage. I'm sorry, not get off the stage. Get out of the room.
Right.
Because I just told this group of hecklers, crosstalkers, to shut up. And you're louder than them now. So again, the culture of the room lives on the producer. And, we know that comedians get together. I tell comics all the time, comedians talk to comedians. Producers talk to producers, and bar owners and venue managers and owners talk to each other, right? So I get all the gossip from all the way around, and none of us are perfect. We're all in this together, kind of. It sounds cliche, but it is the truth, right?
Yeah.
We're all in this together. How many times have you gone to a comedy room and 4 patrons want to watch the Bears game, so they turn the Bears game on and forget the comedy show? I mean, you're like, yo, excuse me, there's a comedy show going on. What do they want to watch the Bears game? Well, then why'd you book a comedy night?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, then why'd you book a comedy night, But I don't let the venues disrespect my comedians. I shouldn't say my comedians. Comedians who work for me. I don't let the people disrespect the comedians, but I also want the people in the room treated well. You disrespect the woman at my show, or you disrespect anybody at my show, you got to go. We're not having a conversation. You got to go. You didn't think it was fucking wrong, to slap that girl in the ass?
Right.
You didn't think it was wrong to make an indirect comment racially at somebody? You got to go.
Right. Also, you can swear on the show.
Oh, thank you. Then I fucking will.
Yeah, I think we got to tell people that in the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
You're welcome to say anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what if there's a new stand-up going up and you weren't there and they tell you it didn't go well, the audience didn't laugh, how do you give them advice because you weren't there in the situation and they're telling you they have bombed, but the room and the producer could have just sucked too?
Yeah, that's right. If a comedian comes up to me and tells me the truth, which is I don't think I did well, I'm happy with that, and I'm good with that guy. If the comedian comes up to me and says to me, the worst thing you can tell me
is this
audience was terrible tonight. Oh, okay. Now I see. The audience was bad. That drives me nuts. What's wrong with doing your set, walking away with what happened there, analyzing and putting together everything, as opposed to how many guys have done a room, not gotten a laugh for 22 minutes and gotten off the stage and be like, yeah, baby, bam. You're not in touch with yourself if you did not realize that you might have had a bad set. But if a comedian is up there and he doesn't do well and he comes off and he might call me or text me, yo, I had a bad night tonight. Okay. That's why there's another 364. Everything's going to be okay.
So do you think ownership is the most important trait for a comedian? Own the fact that you either did well or
Absolutely.
sucked?
Absolutely. We're completely in touch. You should be completely in touch with your set. And by the way, I don't censor comics. The only thing I might do every now and then is so if a comedian says to me, so anyway, I went to the Burger King on Halsted and Roscoe. There's no Burger King on Halsted and Roscoe. That may have been why they didn't laugh. Mm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't real. I had a comedian that used to do shows here that I hate white people. Let me tell you, I hate white people. You know, I hate white people. I hate white people. You know, I hate white people. I hate white people. I hate white people. One day I said to him, do you really hate white people? No. Well, then why split the room up that way? Your first 7 minutes are you hate white people. So if you really don't hate white people, then don't divide the room from moment one. That's why you've got 4 minutes of silence, because half of us are white and the other half aren't sure if we should laugh because,
right.
But you went in too strong, number one. Number two, how about this? How about, what's funny about white people? Completely different response. About a month later, the guy calls me and goes, yo, bro, I don't take advice from nobody, but I'm glad I took that. I got a completely different response now. I go, yeah. Or guys that say, so anyway, I told my wife, bitch. And then the women are like, whoa. And I'm like, let me ask you a question now. Do you really call your wife a bitch? No, we didn't think so. And the women know that too. That's why they're full back. So figure out another way. I'm okay with whatever you do. I don't censor. I'm still going to book you next week. You do the joke the way you want to do it. That's the most I'll get involved. But sometimes when they're not getting laughs, I just try to figure out, man, maybe I should tell them, there was another guy that did lowrider jokes, and he was from LA, and he wouldn't get any laughs. Lowriders and boarders. And I said to him, I go, hey, FYI, again, do your thing. And he did very well here. But I said, hey, we don't have lowriders. I mean, we don't have a lowrider community. Lowriders here are something that the guys bring out in certain neighborhoods on a Friday or a Saturday because that neighborhood or that area has a lowrider show.
Right.
But we don't have that. The other thing here is we don't really have borders, so it's very difficult. But in California, that works. Nevada, Arizona, that works well because there are borders, and the border culture is alive and well there. Oh, no kidding. I go, yeah, we don't have that. Well, what do you think I should put there? I don't know. And so whatever the advice I give, but those jokes take another turn, right? So, but again, not having a good set for me, and when a comedian tells me, man, I didn't have a good set, and I know he didn't, I love that guy or that girl. I love her.
Because they own it and they're going to work on it.
They absolutely, they own it. They know what happened. They're aware of it. Right. And so like everything else, like in your regular job, you were supposed to submit a 22 form. You submitted a 20 form. What do you got to do? You got to figure out how to submit the 22 form, whatever that job is. So same thing.
So what do you say to the person's friends that maybe they're going up on stand up and the person didn't do great? Should the friends be like, oh no, you were amazing? Or should they be like, hey, listen, you can do better? Yeah, that's a little different because sometimes our friends suck. So it's hard to tell. So here is the thing for comedians that are listening right now. If you're a new comic, here's my advice. And I don't claim to be an expert at anything.
I nothing.
Neither do we.
But I've been in this room 20, going on 21 years, and I have seen a lot of shows. Here's my advice if you're a new comic. Leave your friends at home. I know it's cool. I know they want to see you. I know they're excited to see you. But those are not valid laughs. Why? I tell the story this way. When I first did a couple of rooms, they booked me to do a high school reunion where I knew everybody there. Guess who got a standing ovation? Mikey O. Why did I get a standing ovation? Because these people knew me from my youth. And they were not going to not laugh. About a month later at Roberto Clemente High School, I book a show, the Latins from Manhattan from New York. I went up on stage and I could hear dust falling. Nobody laughed at the same exact thing I did there. But those were my friends. And it was very clear. So keep your friends at home until you've got about 15, 20 shows in you. At least don't bring out a group of people because it's very difficult to understand. You know, you hear those laughs and they're not real. You have to go in rooms where you don't know anybody and work that out. And if those people are laughing at you, your friends are going to die. They're going to fall over later. But my advice is in the beginning is keep your friends at home. You know,
That's a great advice. I would have never thought of that, to be honest.
Yeah,
because your friend's like, no, we want to go support
Yeah.
you. It's like, no, the way you
Yeah.
can actually support me is keep your ass home.
Yeah.
So I can figure this out.
Yeah. I felt uncomfortable in a tuxedo that I was wearing a few weeks ago at a wedding. And I said, I don't know. I just don't feel right. I'm going to go ask the people in the bridesmaids. And I said, you know, I'm not going to ask them. They're going to think I look great. Sure enough, I go ask the guy in the lobby. I go, hey, let me ask you, older gentleman. I said, so let me ask you a question. Am I wrong or is this jacket short? Oh, yeah, they measured you wrong. You know, but the whole night, oh, Mike, you look fantastic.
Yeah.
You look dapper. You look great. Oh, my God, you look sexy, right? But I had a feeling because I kind of felt like I was in a straitjacket, you know?
Yep.
And the guy's like, oh, man, they messed you up. Get your money back, you know? So it's those false, you know, people don't want to hurt your feelings, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That makes sense. All
That
right.
makes complete sense because anytime I've ever performed, I always hate when I know people in the audience, like whether it was Second City, whether it was open mics, anything. That was my biggest thing was I was like, I know them. First of all, if I do bad, they're gonna know how to contact me about it. And then second of all, like I agree with, and I liked what you said because I never thought of it that way. But with having them, like going in a room where no one knows you.
Yeah.
Even if you do bad, they don't know you.
they don't know you.
You just start over at the next place.
That's exactly right.
So-
You hit it right on the head.
But yeah.
You hit it on the head.
Yeah.
And the number of people, you know, just so you know, like the number of people who now, here's another thing where comedians are today. The number of people who now walk in the room, this makes me laugh. Comedians will walk in a room, there'll be 9 people in the room. Dude, there's only 9 people here? Yeah, there's only 9 people here. And as far as I'm concerned, that is where you get your stripes. When you do a room that's crazy disorganized, crazy, hardly anybody there, and you can go in there and grab their attention, right? They got 19 other things they could be looking at. Oh my God, beautiful sign, right? And all of a sudden then you know you're earning your cake that night, you know. But people now are walking into rooms and they're like, oh, you know, there's hardly anybody here. There's hardly anybody here. There's hardly anybody here. What is? Do the show.
Yeah.
Do the show.
Embrace the challenge on this.
I want to tell one last quick story. I'm on the way to do a show. Comedian says to me, so I always tell comedians, you know, for flexibility purposes, always try to have 2 suitcases. I call it a 2 suitcase theory. In this suitcase, everything goes. And in this suitcase, I'm walking into the Archdiocese, right? I might have to take some stuff out, right? And we're doing this show, and I take this comedian with me to, I believe it was, Southern Illinois University, you know. And we get to Southern Illinois University. We get out of the car, and the lady says to me, by the way, the Dean of Students is here, along with the Dean of Student Activities. It's got to be a clean show. And all of these comics are like, yo, I don't have a clean act. I don't have a clean act. And I'm like, well, we have options. We do a clean act, or we just tell them we're done. We turn around. None of us are getting paid. Gasoline's going to have to come out of our pockets. You know, this was a 6-hour drive, you know. Every comic cleaned it up. And every comic destroyed the room. And every comic discovered the other side of themselves that night. In their minds, they were like, it's not what I do. It's not what I do. I don't do that. I don't work clean. Well, they all did great. And on the way back, they couldn't believe it themselves. They're like, yo, I could not believe those bits with no profanity. You know, things you discover about yourself. If you're constantly discovering things about your act, like I see it here, because I see it here all the time. I see a comedian develop. I had a comedian who quit drinking, and it was his first time ever performing not under the influence, and was petrified. What did he discover that night?
He could do it.
He could do it. No big deal. No booze, no chemicals in you, no weed, no coke, no nothing. And went up there and destroyed the place. And I'm like, I thought you, what? There was no difference. You know, yeah, I struggled with it. I get it. I know. I get the struggle of alcohol, you know, trying to kick alcohol. And I get that. But it worked out. You gave yourself a chance. Comedians got to give themselves a chance sometimes, right?
Yeah.
We focused on, you know, no, you work for yourself. Stop, you know, worrying about, get these other comedians that are living rent free in your head, get them out of your head.
Yeah.
They're not paying to be there. Get them out of your head. Do your thing.
Yeah. I mean, the first 2 shows we did at Second City were like class shows.
Yeah.
So it's like people you know, you invite and stuff like that. I mean, we would have a couple drinks before the show.
Yeah.
And then I remember the first show that we did that I didn't drink anything. And well, I threw up before. I threw up before the show because I was like, oh my God, we're going to go on stage. I don't have anything in me. And then I like literally had nothing in me after that. So then
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I guess we're doing it. And I just remember like, oh, I was more in control of what I was doing, what I was saying, what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
I was able to think and do, like multitask, like
Yeah.
think and do things on stage. So, I mean, that whole thing was just like I remember that exact feeling was like, oh, like it's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same.
Yeah.
I mean, you throw up before, but
Yeah. You throw up a little bit. That's all right.
Mikey O, thank you so much for coming on. I do have some rapid fire questions to end it, because you, like I mentioned in the intro, you are a huge foodie.
Yeah.
So I'm obsessed with pizza.
Yeah.
We talked about it briefly earlier. What is the best / like most underrated pizza place in
Joe's
the city
on
of
weed,
Chicago?
and I swear that.
Really?
I swear to you. I swear to you. I swear to you. I swear to you. I've told the owner of this place 1,000,000 times, man. They're missing out on a whole different market. It is delicious pizza. He goes out of his way to get the sauce from the right place, the sausage from the other place. And people always say to me the same thing. Well, of course you're saying that because you work there. This is amazing pizza. It really is good pizza. Otherwise, I'm a big fan of John's Pizza on Western and Armitage. John's has been there for a long time, and it's really, really good pizza.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't had either of those two.
Yeah.
Ooh,
I tell you, you got to get a Joe's Pizza, man.
I've had 1,000,000 Joe's pizzas already.
I
so
have
good.
not, but
So good.
all right. Well, then I am obsessed with tacos.
Who
And
isn't?
I want where is the best taco in Chicago?
Man. Well, the best taco in Chicago is, that's a tough question, but I would like to tell you that you owe yourself a visit to a spot called Atotonilco, Atonilco, Atotonilco, Atonilco. And there's one on 26th Street. There's one in the back of the yards. You can ask Joey Villagomez about this. Him and I, we're huge fans of the Al Pastor tacos. Never had anything like that. And then there's one in Pilsen. On Blue Island, Atotonilco. So if I got to go get a taco right now in this neighborhood, I'm on North Avenue in Ashland, I go to La Pasadita because that's the most meat you're going to get on a taco. But Atotonilco is my winner.
All right. Yeah. I think I've been to that one in Pilsen.
Yeah. On Blue Island.
Yeah. I think I'm almost positive, but I'd have to check the pin I dropped on it.
Yeah.
But I was like, I never want to forget this place.
Yeah. That's a good taco, man.
Yeah.
Awesome. Mikey O, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you?
People can find me on Instagram at Mikey O Show. They can find me on my website at MikeyOShow.com. And you can find me here a couple times a month at Joe's on Weed Street. And thank you guys so much for having me on. This was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank the Lord for Sunday morning after Saturday.